How significant do you view this change in policy today?
Well, I don't view it as a change in policy because I think it's more a question of how Trump views Putin than any strategic analysis of what's in the best interest of the United States. I'm glad that the president authorized the transmission, indirect though it is, of Patriots and other air defenses, and I'm glad he's given Putin a 50-day deadline or threatened him with secondary sanctions and other sanctions. I think that's all to the good, but it has nothing to do with any kind of long-term analysis of Ukraine's future and what the U.S. role should be. So it could be quite temporary.
I know it pains you, and I understand that. You and I see the world pretty similarly, to say nice things, not just about Donald Trump, but about any president's foreign policy that does not perfectly align with yours. It's one of the reasons I like you so much. But the criticism always of Donald Trump is that he was played by Putin, which you could say the same thing about Bush. You could say the same thing about Obama. You could say the same thing about Biden. Does he not deserve credit for being the first president to come out and say, I'm being played, and that stops?
Well, he said today that Putin fooled all those others, but they never fooled him, which is a pretty inartful way of saying I did get played. Look, I think he believed that Putin was his friend. I think he still does believe Putin was his friend. But, you know, you can have arguments with your friends. They don't necessarily last forever. I think what really was going on today was that he was saying, this is not my war. This is Biden's war. And in 50 days, he may put secondary sanctions on Russia, or he may not. I think he's trying to walk away from this. He didn't get what he wanted, which was a quick ceasefire from his friend Vladimir. He tried for 6 months. It's not going anywhere. So now he's justifying taking steps against Putin. But I think it also lays the groundwork for him to say, I'm done with it. It's Europe's war. That's what I said at the beginning. I'm done with it.
Interesting. I've not seen him show willingness to walk away, especially if he says, I'm going to put secondary sanctions. Why would he say, I'm going to put secondary sanctions? Why would he say, I'm going to do more than Biden ever did, only to set up walking away from it? It seems if you're going to walk away from it, you do it now, not 50 days from now.
No, I think he has to show that Putin really hasn't made a fool of him, which is pretty close to what's happening. So he's going out of his way to say, I'm not really giving Ukraine anything here. I'm not even really selling Ukraine anything. I'm selling it to the Europeans, and if they want to give it to Ukraine, that's fine. I mean, there's a kind of tortured nature to this. Again, I think the decision's correct, but he's obviously very, very uncomfortable with it. And the latest I've heard is that Congress is kind of putting a slow roll on the Lindsey Graham sanctions bill now that Trump has threatened his own sanctions. Many people have said that bill doesn't add to the authority to impose sanctions that Trump already has. So keeping that bill on ice is another interesting impact of what he said today in the Oval.
Man, it is tough to get anything out of you in the way of a compliment these days. I want to play for you. Yeah, the smile was there. I want to play for you this. This is Democrats talking about Trump on Ukraine. Take a listen.
Donald Trump has spent the first 6 months of his presidency playing footsie with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin has spent the entire year punking Donald Trump and the Trump administration.
Putin has been fooling President Trump for 6 months. You're absolutely right. Putin has been, the president has said, tapping him along. The president has now realized that that's what's going on.
Trump is not doing this because it's the right thing to do. He's doing it because he feels insulted by Putin.
All of that combined, I just wonder, where were those same words for Joe Biden when he kept not giving the Ukrainians the weapons they needed? He kept not putting sanctions on Putin that affected his energy sector, not going after the Chinese or the Indians who kept his economy alive.
Sure, I think that's all correct. I mean, I've been saying for over 3 years now the Biden administration, despite the amounts of assistance it's provided, has never put it in a strategic framework to help Ukraine win the war. It's always been making sure Ukraine didn't lose the war, because the Biden White House and Democrats in Congress were afraid that Putin would go for a wider war, conventionally or nuclear, despite the fact both those threats were totally hollow. So the amount of time and money and blood that's been wasted because we staggered the delivery of the assistance. Yep. We argued about it publicly, Abrams tanks, HIMARS, F-16s, you name it, one right after the other. And that is, I think it's fair to say, a principal reason why the battlefield itself is gridlocked right now. In fact, the most important things that are happening on the battlefield are the development of drone technology, principally by the Ukrainians, but also by the Russians, that we had very little to do with.
Yeah, the Ukrainians now have a drone that intercepts a drone rather than wasting Patriots and other anti-missile systems. They can send it up. But I'm going to give you a soft pitch down the middle here. If you were once again Trump's national security advisor, what is it that he could do, short of declaring nuclear war on Putin or giving the Ukrainians nukes? What could he do that you would be complimentary of, that you would see in a strategic framework that would actually work?
Look, a number of American commanders in Europe, former commanders of the European Combatant Command, have said they think Ukraine can win this war. And I think what the U.S. could do uniquely to help the Ukrainians out is give them a strategy to do that, and then give them the weapon systems that they need. And I understand it's 3 years into this thing, but the fact is Putin thinks he's on a roll now. He thinks he's doing well in Ukraine militarily. I don't understand how he believes that, but that's what he believes. And a real defeat on the battlefield would have implications not just for what Russia has done in Ukraine, but for Russia's threat to all the former parts of the Soviet Union, and to China watching America stand up to this aggression. That's a point to this that goes well beyond Ukraine. It's legitimate to defend Ukraine for its own reasons, but there are bigger pictures here that never occurred to people in the Biden administration, and I don't think have focused on decision-making in the Trump administration.